What's up, guys? David DeSell here, your host of the Business with the Boys podcast, and joined with my faithful co-host, Landon Troyer. I know you're in the thick of it, busy season. How's everything going with you?
Good, man. Like you said, trying to keep our head above water here, but with some travel and um, everything else going on with the personal life, which is all good stuff. And then, been fortunate to have a lot going on the client side and just businesses wise as well. So, you know, just like every entrepreneur out there trying to stay ahead.
Very
Like
nice,
Dory
very
says, just
nice.
keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. Well, let's go ahead and talk about our guest that we had on today. It's actually pretty timely with some of the stuff that Kennedy and I have going on our house, but then also looking into 2025, the idea of buying some time back. And Brandy has done a great job of doing that, balancing a successful business with a head count of I think 8 people total, and basically the same amount of kids. What does she have? Four,
Four
four,
boys, yeah,
yeah,
they've got
four
a
boys, which is basically
almost a
like
basketball
eight.
team.
Yeah, it's basically like 8 kids because they're all boys. So I'm sure there's very little downtime around the house. But this was a really cool episode of someone who took her passion and actually was able to turn it into a business, and also a husband and wife who are able to work together and support one another in their not just business but life in general, which is really cool to hear about. What were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, knowing Brandy and Alex like I do now, I mean, it's not a surprise that they're as successful as they are and everything they do because they're very passionate about what they do, and I think people who are passionate ultimately, it doesn't feel like work, even though there are days when it does.
Hmm.
Um, but knowing what her business has done, she's only been in business for 5.5 years. I mean, so if you think about that, I mean, and where she's at already, and some of these projects she's working on to build a team of, I think there's 9 total, including herself. And as she, mentions, looking to continue to grow that in 2025. I know they've outgrown their space, so they're also looking, potentially do something there. I mean, this thing isn't slowing down, and she's a boss. And I mean, you saw it. You can see the work in the portfolio. I mean, she's
Hmm.
impressive, and some of the projects that she's doing are big time projects. But again, to watch her balance being a business owner with motherhood, and like we're talking 4 young ones and boys that are go go go, and then you got Alex who is a CFO by day, so they really are a perfect combination of left brain, right brain, and I'm excited to see what they do in the future.
Love it. Well, I'm going to formally introduce Brandy here in a moment, but before we do, just a thank you to the folks over at Landjet. Landjet is a huge supporter of the show. I am not a client yet because Landon has not yet convinced me to move out to Nebraska, where they are located. But next time I do visit Landon, definitely riding the Landjet. But Landon, you are a customer of Landjet. Give us a scoop.
Yeah, so I mean, just like you mentioned, earlier, buying time back, right? And whether that time comes in the form of experiences with friends or buying time to be working while commuting, Landjet they're a badass option for it, guys and gals. Like I think you probably heard me say, we use them frequently. Top-notch service, top-notch, actual land jets themselves are top-notch, and why not have some fun and be productive while you're out making your travels and rounds?
100%. And if you're interested in checking out Landjet, just email Rachel at landjet.com and reference the Business with the Boys podcast, and they'll take care of you. But back to Brandy. So Brandy got her first job uh, which I think there's some child labor laws here, but back when we were kids, no one really cared about that. So I support what I'm about to say right now. But she got her first job in design at the age of 14 and has known ever since then that this was the path that she wanted to choose. And then in 2019, she transitioned from her role as a commercial designer to establish a residential firm offering design services that are elevated yet also accessible. And with extensive experience in both commercial and residential markets, B Morton Design has emerged as a highly sought after firm in Omaha, completing projects in several states across the country. That's a key thing. She's not just limited to Nebraska, but she is able to do things virtually as well. And the firm's commitment is to provide unparalleled design, documentation, attention to detail, and effective communication with trades is something that Brandy has constantly upheld, setting them apart from competitors. She continues to scale the firm and manage her team of designers, as Landon and I mentioned, all while raising four young boys with her husband, Alex. So, with that said, let's go hang out with Brandy for a bit.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back.
Well, Brandy, appreciate your time today. And if I'm not mistaken, you're traveling right now. You're doing this from a hotel, doing us a solid and
Yeah,
breaking up your trip a bit. Where are you dialing in from?
I'm in Scottsdale right now. I had a couple things work-wise going on down here, and my husband had some meetings, so we were like, let's just pop down for, I think we're here less than 36 hours. It's a very quick trip, but um, it's always a quick trip to Scottsdale. It's a direct flight, easy to get to. So yeah,
Nice.
And it's a lot warmer there than it is here right now.
it is. It is like 80 degrees today and sunny, which I feel like is warm even for Scottsdale this time of year. I've been down here in November, December, and it's 50 and sometimes it's 80. You never know.
Well,
But it's definitely warmer than Nebraska.
warmer and although I was gonna say bougier, but there's bougie parts of Nebraska I've come to
Oh
learn. There's
yeah.
certainly farmland, but there's bougie parts of Nebraska. But I remember going to Scottsdale myself, and I was like, "Damn, this is pretty bougie."
I know. People come down here and they're like, why do I not live here? Why? And then you come here, which I've traveled here for work in June and July before, and it's fairly
And you
miserable
then you
then.
know why. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, and then Landon, how do you and Brandy know each other? Because you were the one that teed this up.
Yeah, so I've known of Brandy for years because I've known her husband Alex for years, and just finally kind of called and was like, "Hey, we should probably chat on the financial planning side of things." And then
Hmm.
she's also doing, God bless her, a project for my partner Brent on his home that he is doing in Montana. And so got to learn more about her business, obviously, with my interest in the real estate side of things. I was
Hmm.
talking to Alex and I was like, hey, there might be some opportunity to actually work with Brandy on some of the hotel stuff. And kind of just fell in love with her business, what she's doing, and she's blowing up right now. And
Hmm.
so I was like,
Come
more
on the
your
pod.
hubby. I'm like, yeah, we'll have him on the pod, but I want to talk to Brandy right now because she's
Yeah.
got it going on and blowing up. So yeah, that's how we
And
kind of
why
got connected.
and why do you say God bless her when you bring up Brent? He doesn't seem like he's overly particular with everything.
Yeah,
He's
no,
a quiet.
he's so laid back, right?
He is so laid back. He's so just calm and cool and collected. No, the project's been great with Brent. I love Brent. He's a dear friend of mine, and yeah, I he's definitely not my hardest client. There are clients that just, yeah, you just run the gamut in service industry. I mean,
And
it
it's
does
just tough in
range.
general, right? Managing a project from afar, right? I mean, you're trying
Yes,
to keep contractors in line, which is hard enough to do if they're in your own backyard, like let alone
yes,
being,
yes.
yeah. 1,000 miles
There is a
away.
piece, there is a piece to that, for sure. And the specific location in Montana is a very remote location. So even if you get on a plane, it's still fairly difficult to get to. So it's not like a, quick 2 hour flight to Arizona either. But yeah, doing projects from afar is very different from local projects. We've expanded our business to a lot of other states. So over the last year, we've gotten our processes in place that has worked out fairly well for us. And there's lots of firms across the country that do all of their projects remotely. It can be done. It's just kind of depending on where it is and who your client is for sure.
Love it. And Brent, if you're listening to this episode, we're just busting your balls. We love you. Um, so we've kind of touched on briefly what it is that you do, but maybe give us a quick overview out. And I was gonna be incredibly selfish and be like, let's do a case study live because we're in the middle of a renovation. But I was like, nah, I'm not gonna take advantage of her in this episode. But
Let's
we're
take a
neat.
tour.
Yeah, let's hold on. Let me bring my laptop out here.
Yeah.
But no, just teasing. But what is it that you do exactly? And then I want to unpack some of your backstory as well.
Yeah. So I own B Morton Design. It's a full service interior design firm in Omaha. And we have been in business. I started the firm spring of 2019. So it'll be almost 5.5 years currently. And we do everything from high-end residential to commercial as well. I would say probably 75% of our business is residential, and then 25% is commercial jobs, mostly restaurants, country clubs in the hospitality market, on the commercial side as well. And we have a physical studio. Our offices are located kind of in Elkhorn area, if you are familiar with Omaha. And we have all of our studio space offices there. And then we do have a retail store attached to that space as well that has furniture, decor, things like that.
So, what talk to me about your background because I have first of all, I have your website up and the stuff that you work on is super legit. Like better than magazine quality and there's some common ground in that Landon took me and my wife Kennedy to Salted Edge and you
Yeah.
walk in it's just like light and bougie but also casual. It's just and I remember I shared that in the intro call and
Hmm.
you're like that's exactly what we were going for, so thanks for saying that.
It is.
So you're
um
Yeah.
talking to one of the wizards behind it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that said, like my wife loves interior design. She has a bunch of Pinterest
Yeah.
boards and whatnot, but she's not an interior designer. So
Yes.
where'd you learn how to get an eye for this stuff? What was your come up, so to speak?
I've always known I wanted to do interiors like when I was 10 years old. And I know nowadays it always feels very uncommon to know at a young age what you want to do. Most people like don't graduate college and they don't know what they want to do. Um, and the design and the creative aspect, I've always been that type of person. And specifically in interiors, I always loved the colors, the furniture. I remember I would like rearrange my furniture in my bedroom. Even when I was young, I had memories of doing that. Um, and then my first job actually was when I was 14. It was at a place called Textiles Inc. in Omaha. It's a high-end fabric store, really is what it was. And I was exposed, I just filed away their fabrics, their material library. And I was exposed at a really young age of just like the quality of materials, the quality of like finishes. This particular fabric store did do some interior projects. So clients would come in and I would interact with them and I just fell in love with it. And so I ended up going to Lincoln, they have a 4 year interior design program. It's in the College of Architecture. So all the architects are and the interiors and landscape architects are actually the first 2 years they do the same schooling as well. Um, so that program in Lincoln is very architecturally based. It really gears you more towards commercial interiors than a lot of the other programs across the country. Um, KU, for example, has a really great program, and theirs is much more. It's in with the textile school, so it's much more residential. So when I graduated Lincoln, I went to an architectural firm and I worked at DLR Group. It's a large firm in Omaha. It's headquartered in Omaha. But they have offices, 26, 30 offices around the world. And I worked in their interiors department and did commercial jobs that ranged from hospitality suites in football stadiums to higher education universities, healthcare, hotels, schools, things like that. And I was traveling quite a bit during it. And I did love commercial. It's just it's very different than residential, but it was kind of my first job out of school, and I was there for quite a while.
And what was the sort of uh, moment in time where you were like, hey, because there's a big difference between I love interior design and let me build a business. And
Sure.
frankly, if I'm being direct, but also general, because this not everyone fits in this. But typically, if your was it left brain is like the artsy side,
The
and
Right.
is
right brain is creative, left brain is analytical.
okay. So
Yes.
typically, the folks
Hmm.
who are creative aren't the best at running a business.
100%.
And the
Yeah.
folks that, are really good at running a business are not the most creative. Um,
Yeah.
so how'd you tackle that?
I would say I always tell people I'm like the most laid back type A person you'll ever meet. I do come across as very casual, and my creative side is always what I lead with, but I am a very type A detail oriented person. And when I went to the commercial industry of design, it very much functions that way. You would design a project and it wouldn't even get built for 3 to 4 years later. And like everything had to be detailed in line. So I've always had the ability to, I think, function a little bit in that respect. And when I started the firm, I in no way ever imagined in a million years we would be to where we are today. It was not like I saw any most people when they start a business, they like see a need that's missing and they or a passion that they have or something that they think would be successful and they have a vision to grow it and scale it and um, do all these things. And so they launch a business plan and they have, years of ideas of how revenue will come in. And that is not at all what happened. I would like to say I had that, but I didn't. I basically started the firm because I didn't want to be traveling across the world every single week. I had 2 kids at the time. It was a lot. I was working a lot of hours. I was leading the interiors department for the Midwest for DLR Group, so that was like 4 offices of interiors teams that I managed. Um, and so I just said, like, oh, I'm just going to raise my kids. I'm going to do, I know enough people in Omaha. I can do a few projects here and there, still kind of fit my design appetite. And it just kind of blew up. And it was never planned. It wasn't really planned that way. Um, so the business piece of it, as we have scaled, with anything that you launch yourself into, you do learn along the way tremendously. I am very blessed to have a husband that is very left brain, very analytical,
I was gonna say, well, you
and
literally
very
have the
good at
perfect
business.
marriage for right brain, left brain.
Yes, yes. My husband is in the financial side of things. He's a numbers guy. He's very good at business, and he has been a huge asset to me to take my ideas and kind of turn them into a business that can be profitable and scalable and all the things that you want a business to be.
And
So when we
probably
have date
has
night, yeah,
pushed
when we
you
have,
along the way to challenge you to say, "Hey,
yes,
you're damn good at this. You can do this." Because I know,
yeah,
it's like you've got a good support system there that says, "Hey, if you need help over here, I can do it." But you're too damn good not to do it, right?
yes,
And that's fun to see.
yes. He has definitely pushed me in all the right ways of scaling this business. And I, we've taken leaps at various times throughout the last 5.5 years. that, yeah, me as a right brain and, not the business minded person was very scary to do, but it was always good to have him kind of backing me and reassuring that this is the right thing to do. We don't talk a lot on date nights about anything other than business. It's a very boring date night usually.
See, that's my ideal date night,
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
We're
honest with
like,
you.
yeah, we're usually business planning and, of course, talking about the kids and all that. But yeah.
Love
No,
it.
that's awesome. And you've really grown this thing now to where, you know, whether you like it or not, it's a tangible business, and you've got
Hmm.
a lot of other people that depend on you for their paycheck, and I don't see it slowing down
Yes.
anytime soon.
Yes, I would agree with that. We've made the jump, we're in the bucket, and now you just gotta go.
Yep.
So what does the business look like? Do you have a team in place? How many folks?
Hmm.
Like kind of help me understand the like size and scope of what it looks like.
Yeah, we have right now in as of today, we've got 7 designers plus myself. And those are a combination of senior designers and junior designers. And then I have a full-time procurement kind of office manager who handles all of our kind of our day-to-day tasks and also our ordering processes for any order that is placed, moving, delivered. We move about probably close to $3 million worth of furniture a year. So that is anytime somebody orders things, placing the order, tracking it. Is it delayed? Why is it delayed? Giving clients updates on where things are at. It's a full-time job, and things come
Hmm.
in damaged, and you have to file a claim for that. So she really handles all of that piece, and it was really important to bring her on just from a customer service standpoint and making sure the clients are getting, the customer service and answers that they need.
Gotcha. And I guess help me understand uh I want to understand two things if you could unpack it. First, like what is the business model, such as like you charge like a consulting fee and then you get a percentage of furniture as an example. Like
Mm-hmm.
how is this business being monetized? But then also I'd like to know from the customer and client's perspective, like what's your process look like? And
Yeah.
explain it to me as if I've never worked with an interior designer because I haven't.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely curious as to what that process is like, because what I'm realizing now as we're going through our renovation, the all dude group of contractors that we have do not have a design eye at all. And some of the questions they're
Yeah.
asking us, I'm like, I don't know. And my wife's like, I don't
Yeah.
know. So if you can
Yeah,
Yeah.
unpack that,
Google.
that
Yeah.
would be helpful.
any
Yeah.
listeners out there, get Brandy and her team involved at the beginning, because it's a hell of a lot easier for her to set the
Yes.
vision for the contractors to go through and build that out.
Yes. For sure. That comes up. Or just, Google is your friend during those, fire instances. Um, so the core of an interior design firm is it's a service industry. It's no different than an accountant or a attorney that you hire. We're charging our time to individuals, and that is the first piece of the business model is as simple as that. We charge an hourly rate. Sometimes we'll do a fixed fee, but you're charging for your time.
Mhm.
And any client that we bring on, we give them an estimate, design fee of what we think their project would take, time wise and dollar wise. That time is then charged hourly at, we all have different hourly rates. It's really no different than an attorney or similar service. Uh, the interesting piece of an interior practice, depending on how you lay out the business model, is you have the service piece of the revenue for your time, but then you also have the product piece that you're selling goods to individuals. So you purchase it at wholesale, you have a markup. There's revenue from that bucket as well. And then the third bucket is when we need to, or our clients ask us to get involved on the construction side, which means we are, using some of our subcontractors that we work with. We're helping subcontract out some of the work, managing the construction piece that sometimes does involve revenue with it just because we'll pay them directly. And that piece of the puzzle is kind of a third arm. That's probably our smallest arm. It doesn't happen very often. But we do have a great Rolodex of people, and we do help with project management quite a bit. So, comparing it to like a CPA firm or an accounting firm or similar, it can be a very lucrative business in the fact that if you have a month that for some reason your billable hours are down, or you're in the middle of two large projects or something, but then you have a big furniture order come through, the the process of the revenue and like what's coming in can be really helpful because you have all of these different ways that you're collecting. And it in that respect, it does differ from just a typical service. Now there's interior firms that don't charge for their time, and there's some that don't really get into procuring a furniture because they don't have the vendor relationships. You can scale it in a few different ways, but our business model is to kind of include all three of those arms. So to answer your question on process, if for those of you listening that have never worked with a designer before, it is hiring a designer is a luxury service. Like there's no getting around that. It doesn't have to be a luxury service, but it is. And for most people it is. And I think when you bring somebody on with a degree and that really knows the industry, it can be a really helpful asset to your project. We always start with a kickoff, usually an in-home consult. What's your project about? Do you just need new furniture? Are you building, a 10,000 square foot home? What scale are we talking? Talk them through the process. And then you get a design proposal from us, kind of estimating what those fees are going to look like. And then we work through a few different phases of design with the clients, going through options and selections, floor planning. We really start, for like a new construction, we would start in the floor planning process all the way through furniture and accessories and all of that. But then on the construction and project management side, we do end up acting a little bit as an owner's rep on a lot of projects, because just like your comment, you don't know the construction industry. And yes, all these guys that are showing up to your house and slinging hammers, they were not trained on project management. Usually they were not trained on business. They were trained on how to sling a hammer and install plumbing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. So the communication piece between contractors and homeowners is hard. And that is where we can come in, because I know the construction industry very well. I know how things are built. I'm dangerously knowledgeable. I can be an asset in that way. I am not going to be the physical one doing the work, but I know how to manage a project. So a lot of our clients do have us be involved in that piece of the puzzle as well, just kind of as an asset during construction.
So Brandy, I have a question on that. So given your architectural background, are you helping with floor plan layouts, designing like top to bottom and everything? Or is it something where people are getting a floor plan, coming to you and say, here's the floor plan that I have, make it beautiful? Or is it some of both?
It's some of both. We have clients that come to us that are like, hey, we already, worked with this architect or this builder, whoever, they already drafted this floor plan. We just need a designer now. Most of the time when that occurs, we do make slight tweaks to the floor plan just based on our experience. And I will make recommendations on things that I see that, I just red flag.
This isn't going to flow well, or this, you're going to
Yeah.
have issues here. You're not going to, yeah.
And again, like these builders, they have draftsmen on their team, but they're not, again, they're men that, yes, they know how to draw a really good floor plan. They have a lot of experience on what works and what doesn't work, but they're not the ones like in the laundry room and in the mudroom with the kids. And knowing the flow of a home is really important. So we will, speak with the client and understand what their true vision and goals are. My background in architecture has, I think, been one piece of the puzzle that has set this firm apart from others in Omaha. And that is because I would say 90% of the other firms in Omaha are not ran by individuals with actual degrees in interior design.
And
They've
that's why I
picked it
wanted
up
to
over
hit
the
on that
way.
piece because I think that is as someone who GC'd my own project and was hesitantly talked into bringing in somebody from a design eye standpoint at the end. I
Hmm.
wish that I would have had somebody when I was laying out the house to say, hey,
Yeah,
here's how this thing is going to actually be lived in and used, like you would
yeah,
have been a godsend. Right?
yeah.
Because I
Or
liked, oh, I could make it look pretty on the outside, but I didn't know any of the shit on the inside, just to be honest,
yeah,
right? It was like
yeah,
he was like, yeah, you can help me pick out tile, but that doesn't help me at all with
yeah,
the flow of this
yeah,
house or any of the
yeah.
functionality of it.
Or they're like excited to host Thanksgiving and their
So
family, they want a 12
yeah,
top. And I'm like, there's no room for a 12 top in this house
yeah,
anywhere.
yep.
So yeah, things like that do come up. And then when my years at DLR Group ended up being, I mean, I loved that job. I was so happy there. I did not leave on bad terms. It was a fully integrated firm, meaning that they had architects, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, structural engineers all in the same office. So when I worked on a project, football stadium or whatever, all of my team meetings involved all of those services. So I have over the years gained a lot of knowledge just on how something is built. And applying that to a home is really no different in a lot of ways.
I would
And
imagine it's much simpler doing it at a
yeah,
basic home than it is on
yes, it is.
something of that scale.
Yes, it is. The materials are different. Like, yeah, there are differences, but it truly is, how something comes together and functions from a mechanical HVAC system. I mean, it's all kind of it's similar. So when I launched the firm and I went into residential, which I had not done residential design at the time, um, it was very, I quickly learned that the market in residential home building is not at all, the process of project management is vastly different than what I was used to on these larger scale jobs. And I was used to doing a spec book that you specified every nut and bolt and door handle on every door and cabinet 2.5 years in advance. And it was documented a million times and floor plans and spec sheets and books. And then I took that to the residential world and I'm giving these contractors these drawings and details and books and spec books. And they're like, I've literally never received this in my life. Like they don't even know how to read some of this.
Hmm.
Yeah. What do you mean you're not good just with 100 change
Yeah.
orders in the middle of a project?
Yeah. Like this is an elevation. Like this is a section cut of the fireplace stone. So I learned really quickly and we had great feedback from contractors and builders in Omaha that were like, hey, this lady knows how to design and also like she knows how this thing is going to be built and she can be dangerous on a site when there is an issue. And people responded really well to it. Clients responded really well to it because it's not something that has currently been offered in the Omaha market. Um, to your point, you go to your contractor when there's an issue in construction, but they don't have a design solution. They have a construction solution. And then you go to your designer that you've been working for years and they have a design solution that doesn't really translate to construction.
Yeah,
Um,
then the builder's
so
pissed, like, how am I supposed to do this, right?
yeah, and they're like, I don't know, like make it look like this picture. And it's like,
Yep.
okay, well, let's come up with a section or a detail or a mock-up or something. So blending those two pieces I've quickly learned was not being offered in Omaha, and that's when I think we realized that the feedback we were getting from clients, the referrals were coming in so quickly that we realized that this thing has some legs to it and um, can be really successful.
One of the pieces of our renovation that we're doing is in my office. I'm doing epoxy floors that have
Mm.
like a marble look. They're black with like gold veins. And the person who we hired, his name's Elijah, and he's 23 years old. And he reminds me of me back when I was in high school and college, and I had a boat detailing and repair business where I was just like figuring it out. And he has worked for a guy for the last few years doing epoxy floors, but he's like starting to go out on his own. So I've like kind of taken a
Mm-hmm.
liking to him. And he's an awesome kid. And he's doing a great job so far.
Good.
So I share that to ask you, someone like him who's going from doing the work, but someone else doing the marketing and the selling, to
Mm-hmm.
now he needs to go out and do the marketing and the selling to grow a
Mm-hmm.
business to then do the work. Like, how did you transition from, being an implementer to having to be a visionary and implementer? Like, how did you get your first client and then your second client? Walk us through some of that stuff, please.
Mm-hmm. I really started it thinking that I had enough social connections in Omaha. My husband and I are both very social people. We're both originally from Omaha, so we have a lot of contacts just from living here and growing up here. And I knew I wanted to target the higher end market, and I knew the group of people that were going to get me there. And that is where I first spent my time talking to those individuals and at social events at wherever I was, like, hey, I'm doing design now. If you have a project. So I had a couple family friends that hired me from day one. Um, and then I had one of my really dear friends now was doing a pretty large project. And she trusted me to do the word. I came as a referral from one of my contacts at DLR Group. And she was also a very well connected person in Omaha and had a lot of referrals from that. And I do think, for somebody like that that's starting out that wants to expand and, do their own gig, I would really focus on what you want your target market to be and where are these people currently finding their sources? Are they coming from the builders? Are they coming from other contractors? And try to infiltrate it from that angle. I think in Omaha and really any city, in my opinion, um, you really need like 5 to 10 good projects. And those could be small projects, but 5 to 10 good referrals, they tell one other person, and all of a sudden you have a business. Because if you're delivering a quality product and good customer service, and if he would do 5 projects in 1 year, which might not be a lot, but those 5 people are going to tell 5 people, and word of mouth is huge in a town, in any city. And I think if you just focus on kind of who you want those 5 people to be, just so you're kind of going down the path of individuals that you do want to work with, can be can be huge.
Well, I
Just
think
don't
what's
screw
cool
it up.
about well, yeah, well, what I
Right?
think
You
is
got to
Yeah,
deliver in those first
yeah, and
first
deliver.
few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
well, what's cool about the epoxy floors and then what you do is like people can walk in and be like, wow, this looks amazing, or proactively be like, look at my thing, right? Whatever that
Hmm.
project is, like it's very tangible and visual. Um, whereas like what Landon and I do on, the consulting side and the financial planning side, it's tough to
Hmm.
grasp that. And you're
100%.
sharing more your experience than you are look at this picture. Because
Yeah.
if you keep seeing me glance over, it's because I'm just getting lost in the galleries
Uh,
on your website. They're like so visually appealing, and I'm like, damn, that like
Yeah.
I can
Our
see
work
why
isn't
you have
near
a
as
business.
sexy.
yeah. Yeah.
um,
And I think people want a name and a referral. Like if somebody walks into your house and you're like, "Oh, like that floor is amazing." Like, "Oh, yeah, call this guy." Or, "Hey, I need an electrician. Like, who have you used?" Like people don't like going to Google just to like Google a name. That's not really how business grows, in my opinion. I mean, yes, that's a large piece of it, but people just want to know like, oh, who'd you use? If they used them, like they've got to be legit. So like that piece of it and word of mouth, if you have a good name and like Landon said, you don't screw up and you deliver on your product, and no matter what that is, it it will turn out for you.
well,
I
it's so
still get
true. Go
I
ahead.
still get calls, one from David, but like from many people, just because a lot of people I feel like think that I'm in like the construction business because I'm always like building and doing woodworking. So anything they see on social a lot of times is related to that. but a lot of people know that, I did do my own house on a kind of a GC side of things and was very involved with it. And I still get calls to this day like, hey, who do you recommend for this? For that very reason, right? It's
Yeah.
like
People
they
just want a name.
one that yeah, and they know me and they know that I'm very meticulous.
Yeah.
And if I had a good experience with them, they're probably going to have a great experience with them, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, for sure. Completely agree with what you're saying there.
Well,
Hmm.
it's so true too. And Landon will bust my balls for this, but I'm just not doing this myself. I'm hiring someone to do it. But the neighbor across the street, their house looks so clean and crisp and uh, warm with their Christmas lights that they had installed. And I'm not gonna install Christmas lights myself. So I literally saw the guy on the walk this morning, and I was like, "Hey, who'd you use to do that? Because that looks awesome." And I called them, and I'm getting a quote later today as a result. So it's
Easy.
when you're able to visually see something, you're like, and you're
Yes.
wowed by it. Um, I can see how it can take off like wildfire.
Yeah. Yes,
So,
for sure.
Brandy, I have a question. Where's the business going, right? So you've mentioned you've got a strong residential, footprint already. But I feel like some of the
Hmm.
latest and maybe greatest projects, just because I get exposure to them, I don't get to walk into your custom clients' houses, but
Right.
on the commercial side of things, do you see that growing more one way or the other? Do you continue to add team members that have specialty in both? What does that look like? Where do you find your enjoyment, fulfillment? What do you want to be doing long
Hmm.
term? Are you a visionary of the firm? Are you still involved day to day in projects?
Hmm.
Where's this ship going?
Yes, I'm involved day to day. Uh I manage all my designers is the how my day is usually spent. I spend my time checking in on what they're working on, what their priorities are. They're putting together design packages. I typically do attend most all client meetings and presentations. And then I am working on doing design reviews. Anything that they're putting together always goes through my desk before it's shown to a client. Um, right now, yes, we have built the firm on the residential back. The last year, the commercial side of it has started to creep back in. And I think that is partly due to my background and some of the connections that I have in Omaha. And I do think in 2025, we do have plans to expand that quite a bit. Projects that we have coming up in 2025 and just kind of on the horizon. I do see that growing, and I do think at some point next year we probably will make a division of a commercial practice and a residential practice, and those team members, and kind of splitting it. I mean, it would all be under the BMD umbrella, obviously, but I do see it growing big enough to have its own arm within the firm as we grow the team and as we've scaled to add more designers and more individuals, it obviously lets us take on more work. And the commercial projects take a lot of bodies and they take a lot of time. And if you don't scale the firm to respond to that, you're not set up to take on that work. Right now, we have room to still grow. I probably do still need some designers and add some more probably next year. But right
Anybody out
now
there
we're
listening?
yeah, next year maybe. Yeah. Um, so I think now that we have that team in place, we can take and chase those projects way better than what we were set up to 3 years ago. And I think now we're set up in a way that there's some great, commercial, small kind of boutique firms in Omaha that do really well. They're architecture firms with maybe like some in-house designers that do the work, but their fees are usually astronomical. And a lot of our commercial clients are learning that, with my background and we can do drawings and floor plans and permit sets and all that, we can take on some of that work for not near the fee that they're charging because we don't have near the amount of overhead and we're just like a smaller firm. So we're becoming very competitive in that regard.
Mhm. What was it? So when you started this, you said spring of 2019, correct?
Hmm.
Um, was it the Brandy show to start? did you bring anyone on from the beginning? And like what when did you bring on that first person? Because I feel like a lot of folks, when they start a business, they do as much as they can on their own to
Yes.
start, and then they have a shitty lifestyle. And then
Yes.
finally they see the light and bring on another team member. So like, how did that process go from starting it to then building a team?
Yeah. So uh I had my second son in April of 2019, and that's when I left DLR Group and I started the firm. I think it was like in May or June of that year. Um, and I was out of my dining room. It was on my own, and I was raising kiddos. They were in daycare at the time. So I would handle everything during the day and more at night. And as the referrals came in and we were getting busier and I just couldn't keep up, it was probably a year later. Um, I brought on one of my actually old contacts from DLR Group, and we were just working both remotely, and she would help me out during the day. And when I made the jump to hire someone, I was this is where my husband comes into play because like I'm like you, like I'm any person, like I can't hire, like I can't have somebody depend on my like a paycheck. Like that is just, I never envisioned hiring people. I just envisioned like doing this part-time. Like it was just beyond. So we always looked at it when we scale and add people on, really just the billable time piece of the puzzle. And if he would tell me like, Brandon, you just have to bill X number more hours in a month and it would pay for her. And once over, like, even if you just broke even, like, and once you looked at it that way, or like, you just need one more projects than what you're doing now. It's like, oh, well, I can, yeah, help. Yes, I can do that. Like, that's
And if I
doesn't
have the
even sound like
extra
that many
time, I can
hours.
damn sure do it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, well, that's the case. And yeah, Sarah, come help me. Like, come help me during the day. And then a year later, COVID hit and all my kids were home. And I had three. I had my third in July of 2020. And all the kids were at the house and it was crazy. Projects were coming in like wildfire because everyone was just like sitting in their homes and hating them and wanting to renovate. You could borrow money basically for free. So people were taking out, the HELOCs that they always wanted. And it was just a frenzy. The construction industry during COVID did very weird things. Um, and so at the time, like I had my kids at home during the day and I was working basically at night, on our laptops. And that was when I was like, I've got to get a space. So we started exploring the idea of getting a physical space and adding a couple more people. Um, I think that year I added maybe two more people. I can't remember. So it just kind of grew from there. And we always just looked at it as how many more projects do we need to take on to like pay for this person? And it always felt like it was very feasible. So since then, I've gotten over the scaredy pants tactic of not wanting to scale. And um, we've kind of just scaled organically every single year since.
Love that. I kind of want to circle back to because you're unique, and I think what you have chosen to do as far as kind of living your life by design rather than, because it had to have been hard. Like I said, you didn't leave DLR Group because you didn't like it or you weren't having a great experience. You were actually doing very well there, and you made the tough
Mm-hmm.
decision that motherhood and being able to be present with kiddos took precedence, but you also have now grown this monster of a business. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I want to commend you for that first and foremost because you haven't mentioned it yet, but you actually have a fourth one now. So a mom
Mm-hmm.
to four very active young boys. So you don't get much
Mm-hmm.
downtime. Let's be honest. It's business during the
Mm-hmm.
day and it's mom at
Mm-hmm.
night. And how do you balance all that, Brady? Because that's awesome.
Yeah. Um, COVID was really, I mean, obviously COVID was hard for everyone, but like running a business from your house with your kids home, it was something out of this world. And I think, I left DLR to be more available for my kids. I was not accessible to them. I did not personally envision ever being a stay-at-home mom. I've always loved design and I've always loved having that outlet. So I knew I wanted that piece to be in my life for sure. And when I first started, that was my vision, to be kind of available, kind of part-time, be there for my kids. And before, every marriage and every couple has kind of the go-to parent, like the catch-all parent, where there's usually one that's in meetings all day long, and if somebody needs to get called out of school because they're sick, like usually somebody needs to be the fall parent. And that was neither of us when I was at DLR Group, because neither of us were accessible to our kids if something were to come up. So the main goal of doing my own firm was to be accessible to them, and just have more flexibility. So then when it started growing, and yes, I was getting a lot of support from my husband of like, hell, Brandy, like this could be really big, and you're doing awesome, and let's just keep growing it. I I love it enough to follow along. And I think as I've grown, and yes, we've had subsequent children since, I've learned to outsource the things that you don't have time for or you don't want to do. Get help where you can. Like, we switched from having them in daycare after my third was born, and we've had a full-time nanny for three. She's been with us for 3.5 years now. Um, and she's amazing. She's at the house. She keeps up on the kids' laundry. She, does some dinner prep sometimes. A lot of the things with house stuff that I just don't have the time to do. And I think if I didn't have that, it would not be good. So I would say anyone that is a working mom, like if there's things that you just don't have time to do, it is actually very cost effective to have somebody come into the home, even if it is laundry or picking things up. I remember I
Much like
had,
adding someone to your payroll, right? You just have
yeah,
to
it's just like,
understand
what
the
is
time.
what is your time worth? And there's people in Omaha that will come over for 25 bucks an hour, and in 2 hours they get more done than I would get done in a day and a half, and you pay them $50. Like, it's mind-blowing how easy it is to just get stuff done if you outsource it and ask for help. And I've always felt that way. And I I do work a lot at nights. As we've scaled and gotten help, that's gotten better. But you do always have to be on. I think the hardest thing of owning a business is, yes, you have a team in place, you have people behind you, but your name is physically like on the door. So, and that will never go away. And whether you are at a soccer practice or driving somewhere and a client calls you, like, you got to be available. And that piece is not for everyone. And it's, if you are not a multitasker at heart and like kind of go with the flow person, like, you're not, it will not work. And there are definitely days where I just feel brain dead, and I'm like, oh my God, what day is it? Like, this is insane. But at the same time, like, I am a very laid back person. And a lot of people do tell me, like, you're like, how are you so calm all the time? Like, how are you not stressed out all the time? I'm like, I'm just not. I'm not a stressed person typically. Um, and if you are that person, I juggling both can be really hard.
Yeah, I
So
think
I'm
that's
not doing it well.
awesome.
I don't know. There's not like I don't have like a magic ball like to give anyone an answer. I think everyone is tired. I think everyone is busy. I think do what's best for you, come up with a schedule, and be open to asking for help, because it can be a lot easier than you think.
I've seen it a lot more so these days, after doing this for 15 plus years. It's like now it seems like it's not uncommon to be in you and Alex's situation where you have two very high-end professionals that are also very family oriented and want to have, a growing family. So, for those listening, I think that's very helpful and insightful for sure.
Hmm.
Well, I think it's inspiring too to hear that you can, what are we up to now? 4 kids, you said? Um,
Or
you
Or
can
boys
juggle.
that are
Oh,
nonstop go.
oh goodness.
hmm.
So for, 4 kids while, still running a business, like that's cool in and of itself. And then when you peel back, the layers of the business and realize that I think you said you're at like 8 designers or something, like it's like, holy,
Hmm.
this isn't like a side hustle and you're a mom. This is a legitimate business and you're a mom, which is really cool. And I want to
Hmm.
because I've started to have this epiphany where, for the last couple of years, I'm like, oh, I'm busy, right? I'm busy. And then I started exploring integrating AI into my workflows
Yeah.
and whatnot. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm freeing up so much time. And now I'm like, okay, I got to bring on a team member because even with the things that I've been able to leverage AI with, there's still some copy and pasting and random stuff that, like, if I can eliminate that, like in the renovation, one of the things in my office is um, I'm putting a barber chair in there, so my barber comes to me to save the 35-minute drive to him, to and from, and order a meal prep service. So like 85% of
Yes.
my meals are taken. So my question is, in the spirit of buying back time, I'm like finally accepting that it doesn't cost money. It's an investment in freed up time, freed up bandwidth to help grow. What are other
Hmm.
examples in which you're spending money to get time back?
I think whenever you are worried about spending money on a service or something to make your life easier, yeah, I'm well aware that there's a lot of working families that just financially cannot afford to do things like that. And I, I do understand that for sure. But I think if you just look at it from like what your time is worth and whether you're in the industry of billing your time, or if you're in the industry of being an employee of a team in order to have better commission checks or whatever that is, your time is most always more valuable than what you're going to be paying that barber to come and drive or an organizer to come and help with your closets. Like it always is. And Alex would always tell me, he's like, I mean, if you pay her that, then like you could handle two, maybe three more meetings that day, and you bill out at X, and like that pays for it in itself. And if you look at it in that way and just understand like the dollar value of your time, I think I think people would find that it's a lot more financially acceptable than what they might think. Hiring our nanny has been 100% a change of lifestyle for us. She handles a lot of our home things. I do not have to spend time driving to daycare, getting my kids' coats on in the morning, picking them up. If there is a quick doctor's appointment that needs to be done during the day, she can take them. A lot of that is handled internally. Um, over the years, I've never done a meal service. Um, I've never done that before, but I love cooking and I cook all the time. So I think that does kind of bring me joy. But I've done organizers at home. I've done individuals that help, at the office that kind of can assist with my day-to-day tasks and calendars. AI it's wild how much that's taken off. I feel like in the last 6 months, just in general, people are really like latching on to this idea of how much of an asset it could be. And if you're not using AR in your day-to-day activities, you're just doing it wrong, in my opinion. But yeah, that piece has been nice. I think, we're both from Omaha. We grew up here and we still have parents here. So tapping into family members for help has always been something that we've done. I would not have 4 children if I did not have family in town. That I can tell you. um, I have friends that like don't have either families in town and they didn't grow up here, and it's like, and they have 2 kids, and it's like, and they're still busy as shit. And I'm like, yeah, there's no way you can't
Hmm.
physically do it without having family members help you. So, um, we do. So yeah, we got 4 boys. Never got a girl, but
And grandma and grandpa's actually love spending time. They want that call, right? So that
yes.
makes it easy.
Oh yeah, it's like they love it, and it works for us. And um, as the boys have gotten older, once they get to school age, they start making friends and having play dates, and um, things like that. Going over to your friend's house, and I mean, all of those, like your network of who you're involved with on a social level, both for like taking care of your kids and just people around you that can help out, just grows as you age. And I think that is the beauty of it. Um, if you let it, it can actually be an asset.
One of the things I want to, as we wrap up here, I want to get some insight on. both selfishly and I'm just curious more than anything. So regarding AI, you mentioned if you're not using it, you're doing it wrong. So like I'm using it for like a note taker in my
Hmm.
consultative meetings. I have some prompts that I copy and paste into that in Chat GPT to spin around the follow-up email to get me like 90% of the way there. And I just recently adopted AI like within the last 45 days, maybe. Um,
Hmm.
what are you using it for?
I use it a lot in our proposals. I've used it in some of our contract writing, things that just um, take time and it can instantly be done and then you can review it. I've used it um, some of like the scheduling and calendar things. I'm a big like talker to my phone. I actually use like Siri a lot more than I think
Hmm.
the normal person. So reminders on your phone, I'm usually on the go in between meetings and sending myself reminders, sending my to-do lists. We actually use a software called Asana
Hmm.
for our internal management system. We recently just adopted that, and that has been a huge asset because I can instantly see all of my team members, all of my designers, what their to-do list is for that day and what they're working on that week. A lot of times I'll pop in there and review it. Um, and make notes like, hey, I don't really think we need to give that to the client. It's not really a huge priority right now. I want you to focus on this instead. Most of my time is managing my designers. And so if I can do that instantly, like from my phone in the school pickup line or wherever I am at the doctor, I'm constantly integrated into their day-to-day tasks. They're way more efficient because of it. Where before we would have like a Monday morning kickoff meeting and I would go over like, what's everyone working on this week? And I would give my feedback on all the projects. And then I would talk to them the following Monday. And I'm in meetings all week long, or I'm not in the office, or I'm traveling, and I'm not as accessible as I used to be to them. So having that has been huge.
And that
That can
was Asana.
Yeah.
Asana, yeah. There's a free version of it. You can there's a paid version for teams too that if you have a certain size, there's certain things that you can add on to it. But that piece from a project management standpoint has been really nice because if I don't, I always feel like whenever I travel or I'm not in meetings all day and I'm not accessible to my team, I feel like naked in so many ways because I don't have a temperature on what everyone's doing. And I am type A enough to want and need to know that because if a client calls me and asks me a question, like I have to know enough to be dangerous at any given time. But I do not have time to micromanage. I don't like micromanaging. Um, so that piece has really allowed us to give feedback instantly without coming across as micromanaging someone. Um, and the girls love it. They've responded really well to it too.
I'm familiar with Asana, and I just Googled it just to get it back on
Same.
my radar, and it's funny how creative some people's ads are. So like Monday.com, which is what we
Oh yeah.
use, um, there when you Google Asana, the first search that comes up is a sponsored listing that says Monday.com is so much better. I just think it's
Hmm.
creative, like how,
Yeah.
because there's another one that's like Asana doesn't have these tools and it's for a different, and I'm sure if
Yeah.
I Googled Monday.com, Asana would be like, Monday
Yeah.
doesn't have this.
Yeah. The old negative matching on Google. It's a thing.
Yes, it's
Yes.
funny.
Yeah, it's very similar to Monday.com. I mean, there's
Mhm.
there's various softwares out there that are similar to Asana.
Yeah.
This one is geared a lot towards projects. And
Hmm.
if you're somebody that like, you guys in financial planning, like you might not have like quote unquote projects necessarily, but um, so yeah, something to check out.
Love it. Well, Landon got excited when you said you use Siri, and I know why, because when he's driving
I've
up,
got four reminders since this morning that
well,
have gone
well,
off.
that, and when we're driving out of his neighborhood, he's in his truck, and he's like, Siri, open up the gate. And then
I
sure
know.
enough, it just boom opens. But
I like
anyway.
it. I talk into my phone all the time. I send little voice notes. Yeah, but I think I just don't have my hand. I'm usually, if I'm at home, I've got a kid in my arm and I'm
Hmm.
driving, I'm driving. If I'm in a meeting, it's hard to be on your phone
Mama's
a
got
lot.
to maximize efficiency.
Yeah.
Gotta
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Well, Brandy, this has been wonderful. I know you're in the midst of traveling, so the fact that you're setting aside an hour or so to hang out with us two knuckleheads is much appreciated.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes,
you
thank you.
had you had dropped it a couple times throughout the episode, but if folks want to understand more about your business, consider working with you, or simply just want to follow along with your journey, what's the best place to send them? Or places.
I would follow us on Instagram, B Morton Design. We post all of our projects and work on there. And then our website has a kind of work with us tab that you can fill out a form, a questionnaire of what your project is that will follow up and kind of get a consult scheduled. On our website, bmortondesign.com is also a tab with our process on it, kind of like how we work.
Mm,
And it does lay out for anyone that has not yet worked with a designer. It does, in a nutshell, kind of give you our process and how we work. And you can kind of read through that and see if it would be useful to you. Every client is different. Every person wants help with a different thing. It's not all the same. So when people ask me like, how much do you charge to design a 5,000 square foot house? It's like, well, let's like have a meeting. Like what do you envision you need help with? There's some clients that won't put a toaster in their house without sending me a link to it. And there's some
mm,
clients that like just, they have kind of a creative mind, they kind of know what they want. They just need to like bounce some ideas off of someone and like make sure it all goes together. There's different types of clients for sure. So the first step is just having a conversation with myself and my team to see how we can help you.
love it. Well, just on my phone, tossing you a follow. I'll also share that page with my wife as well, as I'm sure she'll find some good inspiration and
Yeah.
cost our household more money. But but with that said, Brandy, again, we appreciate your time. Thanks for
Yes, thank
hanging
you.
out with us, and of course
Yeah.
for everyone tuning in. We appreciate your time and attention. But get back to Scottsdale, go have a bougie dinner, and
Yeah.
we'll catch up soon. Take care.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Whoa. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces.